On Captain James Cook's expedition to the Pacific, he made the first recorded European visit to Hawaii in 1778. It was Lieutenant James King, however, the first lieutenant of Cook's ships, who had the task of recording James Cook's journal entries. After the death of James Cook in 1779, being killed by the native Hawaiians of Kealakuke, King wrote what would be the first ever recorded description of surfing as it was practiced by the natives at Kealakuke Bay on the coast of the Big Island. As King writes his description of surfing, he states,
"I could not help concluding that this man felt the most supreme pleasure as he was being driven on so fast and so smoothly by the sea."
But what does this have to do with the culture of Hawaii, or Polynesia? Well, it all has to do with the Haoles, or for lack of a better term, white-skinned people. You see, when Captain Cook arrived in Hawaii, surfing was very much ingrained in centuries of Hawaiian culture. Names, statuses in communities, and rituals were all determined by surfing. The experts, or kahunas, gave special chance to christen newboards, to bring waves to the islands, and to give courage to the men or women that would surf them. Their culture was an oral one, and they had no written language until the Haoles came. Remember now, Haole means white people. Culture and tradition were remembered through song and chants, similar to Native Americans. Legends were told of love and heroics, told through the surf, that were told by all members of Hawaiian society. Before Cook arrived, Hawaii was ruled by code, or taboos that regulated everything from where to eat, to growing food, to building a surfboard. Hawaiian life was ruled by these tapu, or codes if you will. There were beaches and areas where only chiefs or the alii could surf, and areas where the commoners could surf. The Hawaiian code of life extended into the water as well. Hawaiian chiefs, such as King Kamehameha, were renowned for their surfing abilities. Okay, so now that you understand how important surfing is tied in with the Hawaiian way of life and Hawaiian culture, you'll be able to understand the effect that the Haoles had on Hawaiian culture and what that meant for surfing. European contact was not good for Hawaii. After Captain Cook's ships returned home and his journals were published, Hawaii became the targeted destination in the Pacific for many captains, adventurers, and missionaries, and with them the Haoles brought their technologies, languages, and most importantly, their gods. Jared Diamond goes into an in-depth analysis of the collapse of Polynesian culture through describing the history of the collapse of the culture of the Eastern Islanders, which can be related to Hawaii in its old political ideology, old religion, and chieftain-type system. Yet it was not the political ideology that contributed to the fall of Hawaii. It was the old religion that continued to collapse along with the power of the chief and chieftain that came with the arrival of the Haoles to the island. When the first Calvinist missionaries arrived from England in the 1820s, they tried to convert the Hawaiians from polytheism to their one true God. The missionaries, outraged at the sport of surfing and its easy mixing of the sexes, banned the sport of surfing. At first, the chiefs resisted their influence of Christianity, but within decades it began to replace the kapu system and the old taboo laws. So as you can see, at the same time that Hawaiian culture was being oppressed and their kapu system was collapsing, the waves fell flat as well, as they banned surfing in the early 1800s upon their arrival. Hawaii was changed forever in the end of the 18th century with the clash of Hawaiian and white culture. With all this influence coming from the Haoles, the kapu or taboo system was collapsing, and along with it, Hawaiian culture. As James D. Houston and Ben Finney write in their book, Surfing, A History of Ancient Hawaiian Sport, James D. Houston describes surfing in the following excerpt. For surfing, the abolition of the traditional religion signaled the end of surfing's sacred aspects, with surf chants, board construction rites, sports gods, and other sacred elements removed. The once ornate sport of surfing was stripped of much of its cultural plumage. As a visitor to Hawaii in 1838 records, a change has taken place in certain customs. I allude to the variety of athletic exercises such as swimming, with or without a surfboard, dancing, wrestling, throwing the javelin, etc. All of which games, being in opposition to the strict tenets of Calvinism, have been suppressed. can the missionaries be fairly charged with suppressing these games? I believe they deny having done so, but they write and publicly express their opinions and state these sports to be expressly against the laws of God. With the enforcement of modesty and morality by the missionaries that was applied to surfing, Hawaiians lost interest in it, and now Hawaiians themselves were dying just as fast as their culture was from the European diseases that were being brought and spread across Hawaii. By the end of the 1800s, surfing, Hawaiian customs, and Hawaiians themselves were dying. The Haoles had done everything they could to get control over everything that was or is Hawaiian. There is still to this day a great amount of discrimination against whites in Hawaii. This is largely in part due to that the majority of Hawaii is Pacific Islanders and Native Hawaiians. The natives feel that the whites are responsible for the downfall of Hawaiian culture and that they are ruining the traditional Hawaiian way of life. This discrimination dates all the way back to Captain James Cook and the Haole hate, or white hate. The whites brought with them disease and violence when James Cook first landed upon the Hawaiian shores, and ever since, the Haoles have been held accountable for everything that is wrong with the development of Hawaii. This racism that still exists today is purely because of the natives feel that whites are a threat to Hawaiian culture and the preservation of the Hawaiian way of life. So let's do a quick fast forward into the future and what all this means for the redevelopment of surfing. In the early 20th century, Alexander Ford Hume, a globe-trotting promoter, sought to reintroduce surfing in order to romanticize surfing at Waikiki for tourism. With the emergence of the first surfing icon, Kahanamoku, surfing had been revived, but it was too late for many aspects of Hawaiian culture to be reborn. They had been lost forever. Even looking into the 1950s and 1960s, the great surfers of the time were all Haoles. Even the whites into the mid-20th century had taken the sport that the Hawaiians held most sacred and represented it on the global front through such Hollywood productions as Ride the Wild Surf or Gidget.
You see before you meet Gidget. For 15 and a half years, my life was a complete and total ick. But then, on the 23rd of June, two things happened. I fell in love with two things. Jeff, my moon doggy, and surfing.
These movies are living proof of that even though surfing was revived, Hawaiian culture was never brought back, as surfing was re-emerging through the Haoles, Hollywood, and white surfers. Yet all the artistic pursuits that surrounded surfing could not achieve the message of what surfing is truly about. There was something special about surfing that attracted the native Hawaiians to it, even before the arrival of Captain James Cook. It is something that instills something inside of you that was misconceived by Hollywood and other Haoles. As I conclude with a final interview of Kahanamoku, a native Hawaiian, he will tell how even greater than the thrill of breaking world records or winning Olympic golds, it is the simple thrill of surfing and gliding across the wave that gives him the most pleasure. The same pleasure that was felt by the surfer observed by James King in 1779.
As the competitors for the fourth preliminary heat get into position, let's talk to the greatest surfer of them all, Kahanamoku. Duke, it's a real honor to be here on your island for this invitational surfing championship.
Well, Bruce, I'm glad you came to Hawaii.
For those of you who may not know all about Duke, back in 1911 he jumped in the Honolulu Harbor, swam a 100-yard freestyle, and broke the existing world's record by 4.5 seconds. He went on to compete in 4 Olympic Games spanning a period of 20 years, won many gold medals. I've always been curious, Duke, was it more of a thrill for you to win those Olympic Games or ride some of those giant waves at Castle Surf I know you used to ride?
Oh, they're pretty, both are quite thrilled, but I think this surfing is much more, to me, the greatest thrill of my life. Is ride one of these big surf with the heavy board, weighs about 114 pounds.